are there for you whenever you need them. And my team just said to me, out of all your friends, these are real friends. So I thought that was very cute of my team to say. And I've known these guys, Gary Brecker and his wife Sage, working at Brecker. Beautiful people inside and out. But when we met, I've been an orthopedic doctor for a long time, and I worked in the orthopedic science, and I worked with lots of very scientific ingredients, and one of them was exosomes 25 years ago. And I always wanted exosomes for my products because I worked with a guy from Pittsburgh University, Dr. Paul Robbins, and he said 25 years ago to me when I created the vampire facial, you have to do exosomes. Exosomes is the future. 25 years ago. And ever since I was trying to find the exosomes to put in my products, and I found them like 6 years ago, and I created the exosomatic line, and Gary will tell you about exosomes because he's the boss. But I was very interested in getting exosomes also as an IV drip, and at the time my friends told me go to Gary, and I flew to Miami. And this experience I had with Gary was mind-blowing because I was really burnt out. I felt terrible. I almost didn't make it to Miami. I went to his office 3 hours. First of all, I got my IV drip with vitamins, exosomes, but we had like a 3 hours talk about science. And this is like geeks talking about stuff. And it was just so fun. I went out of this office like a newborn person, and I had like a full week in New York with like tick, 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 tick. And I was like a newborn person. But the combination of doing really quality things to our health, but also, getting your mind fired up and excited and inspired with talking to scientists like you, is like the food of our passion and our beliefs and what we love. So thank you that you took me as your patient at the time, and also Sage, who is also like, we really have a love fest here. But we want to talk about science so you can get the most out of Gary. And I give over to Sally.
Hello, morning everyone. Thank you so much for coming. It means a lot to the brand to have you here. We are here, the entire point of this event is to talk about how we can reduce our inflammation, which, as you mentioned at the top there, is a subject that all three of you are absolutely passionate about. But can we start at the beginning for anyone who doesn't have such a passion for this topic? Barbara, what even is inflammation, and how does it even affect our skin health? Why is our understanding around it so critical?
So very quickly, when I started as an orthopedic doctor, I worked in the anti-inflammatory science in the orthopedics. This is where my whole knowledge started about inflammation, and this is where I became super excited because inflammation is the root cause of aging, of chronic diseases, of autoimmune diseases, of everything regarding our skin goes together with inflammation. And inflammation is not all that bad because it also fights our bacteria and viruses, but we cannot go into chronic or high inflammation. This is when all the crazy stuff starts we don't want. And if we look into longevity treatments, like Gary is like one of the most famous biohackers in the world, but if we look in longevity treatments, the goal of every longevity treatment is basically bringing down inflammation. So it comes always back to the same thing. And I love that. And this is a philosophy we all have to adapt. And we are here today to learn. And then you can bring this in your daily life and in your future. Because Gary, you talk because...
Yeah. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. It's an absolute blessing. Thank you so much for inviting us. And we've been friends for a long, long time. And you've got a beautiful home in Switzerland. You've built an amazing empire. I love that you're so intentional about chemicals and synthetics and pharmaceuticals. But with regard to inflammation, inflammation is very specifically this. It is your immune system's reaction to its environment. And that's what inflammation is. There are various forms of inflammation. There are different ways that we measure inflammation. There are things called interleukins in your body. And you can take a white blood cell And you can put it in an environment, and based on what it encounters, a virus, a parasite, a mold spore, a mycotoxin, a pathogen, it will secrete a very specific form of inflammation. It's one of the things that we use to diagnose the condition that you're suffering from. So if you have a viral pathogen, you'll have a certain number of inflammatory factors. If you have a mold spore, if you have a mycotoxin, if you have a parasite, different forms of inflammation are secreted by your body. So inflammation is not something that happens to you. It's something that happens within you. And the question is, how do we best regulate inflammation? Because dropping inflammation on its own is not necessarily a good thing. What we want to do is we want to get behind the body's natural ability to reduce inflammatory compounds. To be very specific, this is called the NRF2 pathway. And essentially what the body does is it has a mechanism to deal with all kinds of different free radicals and oxidative stress in your body. It will take superoxide and make superoxide dismutase. It will produce something called glutathione, the master anti-inflammatory in the body, the master regulator of all of our detoxification pathways. We make this in our liver. As inflammation grows, our liver gets inflamed and our levels of glutathione drop. As glutathione drops, the liver gets further stressed and it further drops its level of glutathione, which further increases inflammation. And you know, this is a mechanism that our bodies are well equipped to handle. This is why I say that people, when we talk about the inflammatory process, should adopt an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. You know, we talk about juice cleanses and detoxification and liver cleanses. I'm not a huge fan of temporary, impactful, short-term detoxifications because we have multiple ways of getting inflammation out of our body: stool, urine, sweat, hydration. These are ways that you can engage in on a daily basis, making sweating a part of your daily routine, or at least a part of your weekly routine. Movement is one of the best ways to reduce inflammation because we have a system in our body called the lymphatic system that eliminates waste. But this system is static. It doesn't have the pressure of the heart. And the only way that it eliminates waste from the body is by movement, by muscle contraction. The simplest thing that you can do is just walking. If you look at the blue zones, for example, and the people, the hypercentenarians around the world, there was no continuity between diets. It wasn't the keto, the paleo, the pescatarian, the vegan, the vegetarian, the carnivore. It was not a dogmatic diet that extended life. It was a diet completely devoid of processed foods and present in whole foods. Sardinia had the highest carbohydrate consumption in the world, one of the longest life expectancies. Singapore has the highest meat consumption per capita in the world, ultra long life expectancies. The Mediterranean, high in fatty fish and oils, very long life expectancies. And then the French are screwing up the whole thing because they're eating cheese, drinking dairy and wine and smoking cigarettes and living to 117 years old. Yeah, red wine, yeah. So the hell with the French. So, like, you know, there was the one dot when you look at the chart, and like the French are over here, and they're like, well, should we just drop that one? But the two things that were contiguous, that were non-exchangeable in ultra-long life expectancy were sense of purpose and community and movement into later in life. In fact, in Sardinia, the life expectancy was directly related to the grade of the slope that people walked on. And so when we talk about inflammation, we should talk about a lifestyle that keeps inflammation, pathological inflammation in our bodies low. And one of the ways that we can do that is we can engage our body to do what it does best and eliminate waste. Sweating, dry saunas, we have centuries of data on sauna. The data is in, guys. We know that it reduces all-cause mortality, substantially reduces the incidence of cardiovascular disease. Why? Because you are eliminating waste from the body. We have two types of sweating. We have passive sweating. If you got up right now and went for a brisk walk outside, you would begin to sweat to lower your body temperature. But we also have active sweating. If you've ever had influenza or a cold and you're freezing and you're sweating, that's your liver using your skin as a secondary route of waste elimination.
How important is the skin, Gary?
The skin is an amazing, it's not just a barrier, it's a gateway. You know, we think of the skin as something that protects us, but it actually is a passive protective organ. It allows a lot of things in. You know, one of the things I really admire about you, and I'm not here specifically to push a product, is that you are so intentional about the chemicals and the synthetics and the pharmaceuticals that you put into your skin, because very often we will borrow from our future. We will put something on our skin that gives us a short-term benefit, but eventually we're going to...
He's talking about retinol, glycolic, acid peels, and this is something we really have to talk a little bit more, because how important is the skin and how do we treat sometimes our skin with not
Right.
the enough respect for this organ? Because sometimes we think, oh, skin doesn't matter, we just scrub it off, we do all these like crazy treatments on our skin, but we would never do with our liver, our kidneys, our heart. We would never mistreat any other organ but the skin. So the importance of the skin is just something we have to learn and bring into our daily life. And the skin has a microbiome, it has a skin barrier, and this is like the outer layer of our body. And everything we put on our skin, it translates into our system, into our immune system, to our livers. So don't think the skin is separate to everything else. It's not. It's all connected.
But Dr. Barbara, can we just stick with that for a sec? Because I think that's a very interesting point, in that the skin is the only major organ that's showing us how it feels, right? It's showing us every single day how it's doing. And so it'd be useful for you to let everyone know how inflammation shows up on the skin. How is it showing us that it's not doing so well and that it's inflamed?
It's exactly what Gary says. Inflammation is causing pathways in our body, so it can come into swelling, redness, breakouts, eczema, and whatever you don't like on your skin is going together with inflammation. Aging inflammation is one thing. So if we try to do anti-aging, why would we cause inflammation? Why would we cause inflammation on our skin with using ingredients like, starting from fragrances, mineral oils, glycolic, retinol, acid peels? This is all big culprits to our skin and therefore to our health and to our body. Or, ingredients coming from whatever, like the supermarket, in plastic wrapped meat.
Right.
But we ingest that, and the endocrine disruptors, maybe we should talk about that too. Gary.
Yes, so I think you have to start with the premise. If we really just look at human physiology, it shocks people when I tell them this fact, but your heart only circulates 30% of the blood in your body. People believe that the heart circulates all of the blood in the body. It doesn't. The heart only circulates 30% of the blood in your body. 70% of your vascular system is microvascular. It has no pressure behind it. It's actually not circulated by your heart. It's circulated by an activity called vasomotor. Think of a snake swallowing a mouse. There's no pressure in the snake's mouth, right? There's no hose pushing that mouse down. This is a muscular contraction. It's called vasomotor. Vasomotor is how 70% of our circulation moves around our body. It's the reason why most people start wearing readers in their late 40s and their early 50s. By the way, these are blue light glasses. They're
Swollen
not readers.
eyes, dark
55.
circles, wrinkles
Yeah.
around the eyes, because the movement of the blood here is very low.
So,
Almost
so
nothing.
vasomotor circulation is extraordinarily important. It's the leading cause of hypertension. If you actually look at hypertension as a diagnosis, 85% of all people that are diagnosed with high blood pressure are diagnosed with something called idiopathic hypertension of an unknown origin. It's because we only look at the 30% of the circulatory system. You have 63,000 miles of blood vessel in your body, 63,000 miles. No one in this room has a heart with a single contraction that's strong enough to push blood 63,000 miles. So the question is, how do we cater to the vasomotor circulation? How do we improve the 70% of our circulation that feeds the back of our eyes, the rods, the cones, the macula, the retina? How do we cater to the circulation that feeds our liver, our lungs, our pancreas, our kidneys, and our brain? There's two ways to cater to this system. One is to improve something called vascular laxity, which is why supplements like resveratrol, I believe that hydrogen water is the most impactful thing that you can put into the human body in terms of restoring your vasomotor circulation. I take hydrogen tablets every day. I put them in a glass of water and drink high part per million hydrogen water. Game changer. Barbara has a line of supplements that cater to methylation, the pathways that take every nutrient in your body and turn it into the usable form. So catering to our vasomotor circulation through sweat, through managing our detoxification pathways, supplementing with things like glutathione, and then occasionally giving it some support with simple things like gut binders, activated charcoals, zeolite clays, and silicas, which will go into your gut and capture histamines and pull those histamines out of your body through natural stool elimination. When you just engage in this as a regular part of your lifestyle, you keep the inflammatory cascade low and you restore vasomotor circulation. Vasomotor will change your life. It will improve your blood pressure. It will improve your cognitive function,
Circles around the eyes.
your short-term recall, and your skin. Yeah, sorry, I get carried away. By the way, I'm sorry.
But Gary,
My wife's
I
like, you
love
just
Gary
eat
so much."
people's face.
It's
No.
very
Gary, you
excited
mentioned,
about science. when we first met Barbara, Gary and Barbara sat down at dinner. I mean, it was just like
We didn't shut up for 6 hours.
No,
I
I don't think I said a single word. Just like I haven't really said anything today.
I'm going to make you say more than a single word because Gary
okay.
mentioned methylation there, and I know that's a topic that you're very passionate about. Could you speak in layperson's terms about what that means and why it's relevant to all of us?
Yes, since I'm the non-scientist up here, I can dumb it down into English for everybody else. So methylation is the process by which you take in a raw material, either through your diet or supplementation, and it convert it into a usable form. And what I learned in getting ready for this is how important methylation is to, your skin and inflammation and lowering the inflammation in your body. And so I always talk to people about how methylation, if you don't have it right, if it's not balanced, if you're taking too much of something, so many people take too much B12, which can harm you, that can over-methylate you. But if you're not taking enough, it also has severe consequences. And so if you don't have enough B12 in your system, that will cause its own set of things, issues. But one of the things that I learned about it is just the inflammation that it can create when you're under or over methylated. And so that's where you see a lot of issues like psoriasis and eczema and people that are just like, we can't figure this out. And they'll just put cream after cream after cream and take medication after medication. And in reality, you need to get your body in balance by taking the right forms of B12. I highly recommend do not take anything that's synthetic. Any of these synthetic vitamins that are being added to our food source that are in the cheap vitamins, get it out of your life. Look for methylated multivitamins. Barbara has a wonderful one for skin specifically that I love, and it will balance your methylation. And because you have control of turning certain genes in your body on and off. It's like a light switch, but you got to do it every single day. I love when we have patients come to us and they get on a multivitamin for a month and they're like, "Okay, is that good? Am I done?" And no, you're not. This is an everyday thing. Every day you have to think about what you eat, what you're putting into your body. Are you nourishing yourself? Are you balancing your hormones? Are you balancing your mental health, your gut health? And when you get it right, it's such a game changer. It will clear your skin up. I don't think my skin has been more clear than when I got it all in balance and started using Barbara's products. It's like I'm not breaking out like a teenager.
Real quick? I just want to talk about a huge one real quick because it should bring it to everyone's attention, and that's folic acid. Right? Folic acid, for the record, is an entirely man-made chemical. You cannot find folic acid anywhere on the surface of the earth. It does not exist naturally in nature. Folic acid did not exist until 1993 when we made it synthetically in a laboratory. Folate occurs naturally in nature. These are very different compounds. About half of this room has a gene mutation. 50% of the population has it, called MTHFR. It's affectionately called the motherfucker gene, but that's not. Can I say that from the?
You can definitely say that.
So it stands for methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, but 50% of this room has that, and it doesn't sound like a big deal. This is how your body will take folic acid and folate and convert it into the usable form called methylfolate. It doesn't sound like a big deal until you realize that folic acid is the most prevalent nutrient in the human diet. We spray in America all of our grain supply, all white flour, all white pasta, cereals of any kind, and our entire grains by law are sprayed with the chemical folic acid. Although we don't call it sprayed with folic acid, we call it fortified or enriched. So 50% of this room, right down the center here, and I don't know if you all sat on the side where you have MTHFR, so the motherfuckers are over here, you guys are fine. But this genetic mutation will not allow you to process this folic acid. It's the worst thing that we ever did to OBGYNs was to recommend high doses of folic acid to pregnant women.
Pregnant, yeah, everybody did.
It doesn't prevent a neural tube defect. Methylfolate does. So if you are selecting a vitamin to take on a daily basis, make sure that it's methylated. It's already been converted into the usable form because half of you cannot process folic acid. So what happens when you take in too much folic acid and you're deficient in methylfolate? Well, a lot of things. First of all, methylfolate is what we use to move the peristaltic activity in our gut. So you will live with a lifetime of gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, irritability, cramping. You'll get food sensitivity and food allergy testing. You'll never find it. You'll have skin blemishes, lesions, cystic acne, and not realize that the root cause is a deficiency in something called methylfolate. So I would highly recommend, if you're on this sort of inflammatory journey in your life, to consider adding things like hydrogen water, resveratrols, and a methylated multivitamin.
The other big piece of MTHFR is if you suffer with anxiety, anxiousness, depression, panic attacks, worst case scenario, but it happens, suicidal thoughts. And it's so sad that we live in a world that's solvable by taking that out of the food source, but there are some people who are still believers in it. But check your pantry. Think about all your carbs, rice, pasta, cereal, bread, crackers, cookies, all the good stuff. And if it says enriched or fortified, if you're here in America and you come over from Europe and you always, you eat bread at the restaurant and then you feel terrible afterwards, that's folic acid in your bread. But when you remove it, and it will calm anxiety, it'll calm depression, it will calm your skin inflammation down. There's so many pieces to it, and just take 5-methylfolate instead, or eat organic products of carbs, non-fortified, and you'll feel great.
Guys, you've
Take notes.
You've just prompted a topic that I really wanted to talk about. Gary, you were talking about this awful cycle that so many people have of bloating, diarrhea, constipation, cramping, all of that stuff. And then Sage, you talked about mental health. And so it feels like a really good opportunity to talk about the relationship between gut and brain and how much is opening up there into the mainstream. Gary, can you speak to that? And then I would like to open it up to you two too.
Yeah, no question. So if we think about what goes on in our gut, first of all, let's just take a major category of mental illness, depression. If you look at the PDR definition of depression, it will tell you that depression is a deficiency in serotonin. So in other words, it's an inadequate supply of the neurotransmitter serotonin. Why is that? Because serotonin is a component of every elevated emotional state. So in order for you to feel passion, elation, joy, arousal, libido, like all the hell yeah, I won the lottery emotions, you need to have the neurotransmitter serotonin. So if depression is defined as low serotonin, then you would think that the fix would be for someone that's depressed to raise serotonin. But that's actually not what we do. We take people that are low on serotonin, we put them on SSRIs, which by definition never raise serotonin, so they by definition never end depression. But the question is, where is serotonin made? It's made right here in your gut. 90% of the neurotransmitter serotonin that creates every mood and emotional state that you can feel is made right here in your gut. We take an amino acid called tryptophan, we methylate it into the neurotransmitter serotonin in our gut, it travels up the vagus nerve, and it creates mood and emotion. So rarely does mental illness begin in the brain. It usually begins in the gut. This is why most people, if you have ever been someone or know someone who's suffered from a condition like anxiety, they will have 3 common characteristics. First of all, I've never in 150,000, almost 200,000 patients that came through our clinic system, I never once, not a single time, met someone that suffered from anxiety that did not also have gut issues. Not once. They will always complain of gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, irritability, cramping.
Or think about when you are worried about something and you feel it here too. And
Yeah, so very often these come from deficiencies, right? So there is a single cell layer separating your outside environment from your inside environment. So believe it or not, your intestinal tract is actually outside of your body. It runs through you like a pipe, but it is external to your body. It is contiguous with the side of your cheek, right? It folds through, it starts at the mouth and it exits at the rectum. There's a single cell layer separating your inside environment from your outside environment. When you get disruptions in that cell layer, which is called leaky gut, contents from the inside the lumen of your gut begin to slowly leak into your bloodstream. And then what happens? The immune system is called to that location because 70% of our immune system is right here in our gut. And when the immune system lights up, the waste elimination pathways light up. And there is your skin, your psoriasis, eczema, cystic acne, sebaceous acne, rosaceas. A lot of these conditions are not happening to you. Again, they're happening within you. So healing and sealing the gut is actually a relatively simple process. It begins by giving your body the raw material that it's deficient in, and it ends by healing and sealing the gut. Things, peptides like BPC-157 are excellent for this. There are gut binders that actually pull histamines out of the gut, are excellent for helping you heal and seal and repair your gut. But I don't believe that anyone stands a chance of healing from a mental illness, anxiety, ADD, ADHD, OCD, manic depression, bipolar, without first healing the gut. Because if our neurotransmitters are made in our gut, that means our mood begins in our gut. And this connection is only now really being researched and coming to the mainstream. When I started talking about this 10 years ago, I was absolutely called a charlatan for it. But science has proven otherwise. You know, there's not a single compound that you ingest, that you put into your body, that a single cell in your body can use as a fuel source. None of us can use the protein in chicken for energy. None of you can use the iron in spinach for energy. Your body does not use the food you eat for energy. We eat for one reason, to feed our gut bacteria. Our gut bacteria eat to feed us. In the absence of your gut bacteria, the intermediary that turns what you put into your body into the fuel source your body recognizes is gone. So if you want to be kind to yourself, be kind to your gut.
There seems, as you say, it now seems to be such a mainstream and accepted idea that there is a constant dialogue taking place between your head and your stomach, right?
Yes, I mean, you know, a lot of addiction, you know, begins in the gut. We used to say on the research team that the mortality research team that I was on, that the absence of dopamine is the presence of addiction, because when this neurotransmitter, which is very specifically linked to behavior, it's the main driver of behavior. When this neurotransmitter gets low, you begin to engage in dopamine-seeking behavior, whether it's nicotine or alcohol or promiscuity or thrill-seeking. You're actually not seeking. You know, if you've ever been an addict or you've known a true addict, you know, they didn't wake up one day and say, I want to get really banged up. They woke up one day and said, I want to feel normal. Mm-hmm. It was the search for normalcy that actually led to addiction. This is why I'm so empathetic with people that suffer from this. We never talk about the dopamine deficiency, which begins in the gut. And this is the reason why almost all forms of addiction never have a tendency to go away. They have a tendency to shift. Mm-hmm. Drug addicts become alcoholics,
exercise addicts, all of that
workaholics
stuff.
become workaholics.
Right.
Yeah. When I was competing, you know, actively in triathlons, I would say 35-40% of the guys that I raced with had recovered from something.
Yeah.
This was just their new addiction.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do you restore the right dopamine balance to the brain? Because when dopamine is balanced, you don't engage in dopamine-seeking behavior. If I had a magic wand to suck the dopamine out of anyone sitting in this room, you would very shortly begin to engage in dopamine-seeking behavior. This is the cycle of sugar addiction. This is the cycle of emotional addictions, the cycle of alcohol, nicotine. And so if we're really kind to our gut, and our gut is producing the healthy levels of dopamine, healthy levels of serotonin, you find that mood disorders eviscerate. Right? We think that we can put chemicals or synthetics or pharmaceuticals into the brain to fix a deficiency that's coming from the gut. I believe that's patently false. I believe that if we started in the gut, we could fix the mind. In fact, I don't believe that we have a mental illness crisis in this country. I think we have a lack of mental fitness, which really does start.
Gary, we have to talk about the skin now.
Okay, sorry.
I was just
Yes,
coming
because
to you, Barbara.
because being kind
She
to your
asked me
gut-
about the gut. That's her fault.
No. And she's absolutely right. We had to know all of this. But be kind to the gut. We always say, love your skin. Your skin will love you back. Respect your skin. Your skin will really show your the appreciation. I want to know, what are the most important things you can do to your skin from an outside perspective? We all learned about what we have to do from the inside, but what do we have to do from the outside? And I want you to talk about hydration, or hyaluronic serum. You have such a great theory about it, so I want you to.
So if you think about how does the skin eliminate waste, what happens when the immune system is called to the skin? Well, hydration is the fuel source that actually helps our skin eliminate waste. Hyaluronic acid will bind 1,000 times its weight, molecular weight, in water. So imagine for every person in this room having 1,000 other people come into the room every time one person entered. At a molecular level, that's what high molecular weight hyaluronic acid does. It's one of the reasons why exosomes and your exosome serums are so incredible. Barbara and I actually did a clinical study. We took punch biopsies from women, I think 26, 37, and 54 or 56-year-old women. We cultured their fibroblasts in a lab. We actually sent their skin punch biopsy to a lab, and we cultured their skin in a lab. And we essentially made sheets of their fibroblasts. And we used, what was your fat-based serum that we used? I knew it came in a bottle like this.
One cream, and we put exosomes in it.
Yes. So we took one of her creams,
Similar to the face cream, yeah.
but because it had
beautiful cream.
fat lipid particles in it, we injected exosomes into the cream. The fat particles absorbed the exosomes, and then we spread these on the different skin biopsies we have. I'm happy to send you guys the study because we
We
still
have to revisit it. We have
Yeah,
to
I know,
do
we
something
really
with this.
do.
Jesus.
It's like, it validates what you do so much, and we never published it. We really should publish it.
No, we have to get on this.
But what was really interesting is the lab watched it under electron microscopy for 90 days because we wanted to see, first of all, what was the shelf life at room temperature. So we used one at 30 days, we used one at 60 days, and one at 90 days. And first they found the presence of the exosome was still viable. So that was the first big thing for us. But then we actually began to see increases in collagen, elastin, and fibrin.
Leslie, you have to pay attention now.
And in the 90-day sample, we saw angiogenesis. We actually saw new blood vessel formation, the sprouting of capillaries, kind of like a tree root under the soil. So when the distal tips of a capillary are stimulated properly, they will sprout, right? And so more blood vessels means more blood flow. And it was so astounding, and then we just never published it, which I don't know why.
It also helped with the pores too.
Yeah, that is absolute anti-aging.
It really is.
Oh, that's the reversal of aging.
That is also what BPC 157 does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Revascularization. This is
body protection compound. Can I talk about that, or? Okay, because you'll just shut my mic off.
Did you? No. But did you say enough about this? What we did?
Yeah, I mean, this is incredible. I mean,
Exosomes
Really, really works. I don't know
But-
why we
but-
stopped. We got to get back on that
But
project.
Barbara,
Yes, so
there's
bring
a
me back to the
paradox.
topic.
There's a paradox at play here in skincare because at the time you created your brand, or certainly at the time your brand first launched, everything was about harsh actives.
Not in my brand.
And yeah, everything was about harsh actives, and you swam against the stream.
That was what we
but
first
it's
connected
still-
on when
no,
we
but
met.
it's
We
still,
first
it's
connected
still
on
if
that.
you go to a dermatologist, everybody prescribes you retinol. Everybody tells you need to use retinol. I want to have your take on retinol and all this.
Yeah, so any of these things that, so if you are purposely causing an immune reaction in your skin, that is not a good thing. Like it's like when people get really sick from cleanses, I explain to them, that's a terrible thing. No, those are the toxins leaving your body. No, those are the toxins going back into your body. Your liver traps those toxins, converts them into something that is an inert waste that can't harm you. So clearing that side of the liver is excellent for you. Causing it to release the toxins it's holding on is terrible for you. So the same pathophysiology is present in the skin. When you put acids and chemicals and synthetics or pharmaceuticals that your body does not have an enzyme, does not recognize, doesn't have a pathway to eliminate it, that chemical stays in your skin. You see the initial reaction, the peeling, the redness, the burning, the itching, the swelling, which may create a visual cosmetically positive response. But you just borrowed from your future. Well, maybe it pumps your skin, or you get an intense facial peel. What you've done is you've just borrowed from your future, right? You've just put, and eventually the future is going to show up. And so the best thing to do, again, is just support good physiology, excellent blood flow, good waste elimination, healthy sweating, toxin elimination. Keep the
Hydration.
And hydration, especially with hyaluronic acids. Keep the immune system out of your skin.
Can I actually ask a question? Because I went shopping last night upstairs, and I've always used the regular hyaluronic acid, but I didn't realize there was the dark skin one.
Oh, that is such a good.
And so this is me being very naive, but I was like, I don't have dark skin, so I didn't think that was the one to buy.
That's not
Then
naive.
That is a common
You
question,
don't
though.
have dark skin.
But she said it was like more deep, like, and I've got Irish freckles, so.
Very, very good question. So, I studied melanin-rich skin, and I found that melanin-rich skin has even a more, there's more prone to inflammation. So, a lot of women or men they complain about breakouts and then post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. So the comedones or the breakouts, you try to fix it and then you get like a post-inflammatory pigmentation on it, and it's all around. So this is the biggest problem with melanin-rich skin, right? So I created basically our normal product, but I added extra anti-inflammation, antibacterial compounds, and compounds to even out the skin tone. So when you use the darker skin tone line, and I use it because I love the extra effect, and everybody has, you know, when we age, we get like little spots and pigmentation. And so it's like the same like our normal line, but it's way more active, not active like what we think is active.
Right.
No, it's just more powerful and an anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, properties.
Yeah, I use your, and so does she, we just slather your hyaluronic acid on every time we fly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great on a flight, but I had it on all through my flight. It's fantastic.
By the way, can people buy products here?
Yeah.
If you want,
You shop right
Yeah.
upstairs.
Thank
It's
God.
Fabulous.
Is there a store? Oh,
Wait, is it
all the way
upstairs or
up.
downstairs?
It's
Downstairs.
one-
Oh, downstairs.
It's one down. And,
Upstairs, you get your face analyzed, which is super
Right.
cool.
There are lots of cool things that people can do here after today's event. But before we do that,
one more thing I want to say about using these harsh ingredients. What you also do when you do it, not just causing inflammation, but also break through your skin barrier. And what happens when you
Yes.
destroy your skin barrier, not just bacteria or pollution or whatever flies around comes in there, something happens which is really way more important. That is called transepidermal water loss. So water leaves the skin. So instead of getting hydration, water even leaves the skin. And that makes us age. That makes us getting wrinkles. So dehydrated or dry skin is never an option. If you have dry skin and if you have problems, I cracked the code of hydration. I know how to fix it.
we are going to go to your questions now for these final few minutes. Please do raise your hand if you have anything you would like to ask anyone on the panel. While you're thinking about that, I would like to ask you all. We've talked about supplements, we've talked about a better diet, and the things, the basics that you have to engage in every day. Can you think of something that people can take home with them today to incorporate
You know what
into
we
their
will
own
do,
lifestyle?
Sally? I cut this off because I want to hear all the questions. I want to have like a little memo from Gary. So you all leave your email address or your WhatsApp, whatever, and I will send it to you. We get like
Okay.
a little memo. Is this
Great.
good?
Love it.
That's perfect. I'm happy to write one.
Love it.
Can you talk about the role of histamine in inflammation and how it shows up on the skin? You mentioned it very briefly with respect to charcoal.
Yeah, so histamines are made in our gut. Okay, this is why most of your inflammatory response starts in your gut when you get sick or when you get nauseous or when you encounter something that's scary and your gut begins to release histamines. So histamines is actually not a thing; it's a category. So in the category of histamines, which is a category of inflammatory compounds, right? It's like cytokines. There's a bunch of those. There are a bunch of histamines, prostaglandin E2s, bradykinins, all these histamines. So the question is not, one is what causes the histamines? And secondly, how are they eliminated? Histamines are eliminated by the liver through the skin. So when you have concentrated chronic inflammation coming from the gut, the liver will push that inflammation out through the skin through something called active sweat. And you don't have to be sweating, like you're standing out on in the sun on a hot day. This is just moisture as it leaves your skin will contain histamines and will cause inflammatory conditions in the body. So histamines very specifically are from the gut. If you heal and seal the gut, and gut binders are a great way to bind histamines. Sauna detox is a great way to eliminate histamines. Increasing your glutathione is a great way to eliminate histamines. And then finally, doing sensitivity testing is a great way to stop histamines. We think about allergies and sensitivities as things that cause an immediate reaction, right? Like I can't eat shellfish, right? Because I blow up like a balloon. But there are reactions that go on in your gut that you don't feel. Right, you don't actually get sick from it, but it causes this histamine response, this sort of low-grade release of histamines in the gut. There's an excellent food sensitivity test called the ALCAT, A-L-C-A-T. There's another one called the MRT, the mediator release test. These are the only two allergy and food sensitivity tests that actually remove your baseline level of inflammation to get your true sensitivity. You do these tests once in your lifetime. I have no affiliation with them. And you find these triggers, which might surprise you on what they are. Your triggers are based on your gut microbiome. So the reason why you could have been allergic, for example, or sensitive to avocados last year and you're not this year is because your gut microbiome shifted. Food sensitivities are based on your gut microbiome. Food allergies are based on your genome. Severe allergies rarely change. Sensitivities shift, right? So finding out what you're sensitive to and removing those will reduce your histamine response.
So cool.
I can come to you.
This is why they talk so much when they're together and they just.
I'm just like, I could do this all day.
Please go ahead.
Okay. What are your thoughts on plant exosomes versus human exosomes versus lab-created exosomes that are in your products?
So the question is, what is an exosome, right? So an exosome is a secretion from a stem cell. So an exosome is 1/800th the size of a stem cell. It's a very small. It's about the size of a virus. So depending on what that cell was exposed to will depend on what exosome it releases. So in other words, we can actually manipulate what exosomes we draw out of a stem cell. Depending on what we expose that stem cell to, we can get high molecular weight hyaluronic acid exosomes. We can get exosomes that are high in growth factors. We can actually combine those things. So
I like to say it's like a baby cell that doesn't know what it wants to be when it grows up. And that, again, dumbed down in English,
Yes,
helps
sorry.
lower inflammation, which is a big deal.
That's
Yes.
why we
So if
love
you have
exosomes.
something in your body that's shouting like red alarm fire, this is injured, this is
I
inflamed.
worked with exosomes 15 years ago
Yeah.
in the orthopedic science, and we treated patients with rheumatoid arthritis, which everybody who knows someone with rheumatoid arthritis, it's very painful, and there's no much you can do, especially if you have to take really hardcore medication. And we took them away from the medication, and we gave them exosomes. They were pain-free for 3 months.
The amazing thing about exosomes, just to wrap up, and specifically the ones that Barbara has in her product, are that because of their size, they don't ask permission to go into the cell, right? They walk right through the cell wall like a ghost. The problem with most products is that when you reach the cell wall, the cell doesn't let it inside. Cells that are deficient in B12 will be swimming in B12 in the blood and not pull B12 through the cell wall because they're inflamed. So an exosome ignores that. It's like a ghost. It will walk right through the cell wall, it will reduce the inflammation, and it will deliver high molecular weight hyaluronic acid, growth factors into that cell.
Coming back to the orthopedics, we would only inject maybe 2-3 joints, sometimes only the finger joints,
And
it would
systemically.
heal the whole body. It was amazing, and that's why I think when I came to you and got the exosome IV drip, I was just like, whoa, yeah, it's great. It's something you guys should look into and maybe get done on a regular basis. How often do you recommend the exosomes? Every
Well,
6
you can
weeks?
do them intravenously. They're expensive to do intravenously, so depending on your condition, you can do those once a year. But applying them topically is a great idea.
Oh yeah, we have a
because
beautiful exosomatic
right
product.
through the skin barrier and right into the inflammatory cell. And an exosome is attracted like a fly to flypaper to inflammation. So they're
Finds
actually
it.
they will leave the bloodstream and enter tissues that are inflamed, very similar to a stem cell.
That's the future. If someone asked me about the future of skincare, it's still the exosomes. So
I really
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the scientific information you're giving. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
But could you say a little bit more about glutathione? Isn't that hard to be absorbed by the body?
So glutathione, yeah. So let's talk about how to get it into the body. So first of all, glutathione is made by the liver. Glutathione resides inside of every single cell in your body. There is not a single cell in your body that does not contain glutathione. In fact, there is a test that we can do to measure the level of glutathione in a cell, and we can tell exactly how long that cell has to live. And the reason why it's so important is because glutathione is the main elimination antioxidant in the human body. It is the master of all antioxidants. Nothing comes close.
what
Because-
about superoxide dismutase? Comes
Yeah, but
closer.
superoxide dismutase starts as superoxide and then becomes dismutase when you activate that NRF2 pathway and the cell produces superoxide dismutase. So glutathione will actually interact with all of these inflammatory agents. It will reduce superoxide dismutase. It will interact with a hydroxyl free radical. And so getting it into the body, it does not survive first-pass metabolism. So it's very hard to take orally. There's 3 ways to get it into the body other than intravenous through an IV. You can take a liposomal version. So
That's what you gave me.
yes, that's what I gave you.
I have it.
Yeah, so when you take a liposomal version, that fat molecule will
awful.
protect it from the stomach acid and it will release it in the gut. Yeah, so liposomal glutathione is good. There are transdermal glutathiones. Now, again, I have no affiliation with this, but there's a PhD named Dr. Patel that makes a transdermal glutathione spray called Gluterol. The proteins go right through the skin, and you can take it sublingually. So those are the 3 ways to take glutathione. If you just take a glutathione capsule, it's useless, just like most probiotics. About 85% of the probiotics on the market are useless because they don't protect those bacteria from the stomach acid.
Great. Any more questions?
Thank
Can
you.
you speak of the levels of B12 that people should have based on age?
Yes, so you know, if you, sorry, did you want to? I feel like
I can talk about there's 4 different types of B12. So the most prevalent one that you see everywhere is the synthetic form, and it's called cyanocobalamin. I don't recommend that at all. It's not easily convertible into the form of methylcobalamin. That's a much more, that methylated B12 is, your body will respond so much better to it. The other 2 natural forms of B12 are hydroxycobalamin and adenosylcobalamin. So if you can find methylcobalamin, adenylyl, or
Put that in the memo.
hydroxy, yes, that's a good idea. But stay away from cyanocobalamin. It starts with a C. Just if you can
Cyano
remember-
doesn't sound so good.
Yeah, it's a cyanide-based form of B12. So if you remember that, you'll spin your bottles around at home and check, or at the grocery store when you're buying a multivitamin. But the best methylated forms are just going to make you feel so much better. I think it's like 1,000. You're better
Yeah,
at
about
that.
1,250 is a good level for B12. You want your B12 to be high. B12 is a water-soluble vitamin. It's a light metal. It's like zinc and magnesium. It's a cobalt metal. When you put it into the body, we call it cobalamin. When you bind it to cyanide, it's called cyanocobalamin. I would really avoid any supplement that has the cyanocobalamin form of B12. We actually make that from human sewage. The patent to make cyanocobalamin is to take sludge from human sewage, pull out the hydrogen cyanide, bind it to the metal cobalt, and call it cyanocobalamin.
How amazing is
You can
Gary?
look all this up on PubMed.
Can we get a big applause for Gary? Sorry, I have to. His knowledge is, I don't know anybody who has the knowledge of Gary. I don't know anybody.
He's like Google. He's like, just, and sometimes I used to think he was like when we first started dating 10 years ago.
She would fact check me all the
I would like get on Google because I'm like, you're making that up.
The first 3 years we were dating, she was like, she would ask me a question, then she would Google it. She'd go, damn, how did you?
Well, because I also know the other side of Gary, which is just a giant
So
goofball.
rude.
So I'm like, there's no chance you're this smart. But he is.
More questions?
Okay, so I start here, then I come to
Oh, sorry. Hi. I just have a quick question. You sort of were interrupted with that's compound, the 150 compound. Is there a way to supplement?
BPC 157. Yes. So BPC 157 is a peptide. So it's called body protection compound -157. I think this should be as common as a multivitamin. And the reason for that is that it's an amino acid peptide. No one in here would be harmed by taking BPC 157. It is one of the most healing peptides you can put in the human body because what BPC does, first of all, it's synthesized from the gut. It's a gastric pentadecapeptide. When you put it into the body, it will call platelets to the site of injury, and it will cause a platelet to burst and release growth factors. So this is how the body heals, right? So let's say you were walking along the street outside and you stepped off a curb and you twisted your right ankle. How does the body know to heal this ligament and leave this ligament alone? The reason why it knows to heal that ligament is because when that ligament tears, it starts to release inflammation into the bloodstream. Okay, you've burst a fibroblast and it's screaming into the bloodstream, hey, I'm hurt, I'm hurt, I'm hurt. Well, that sound is heard by a platelet. And when the platelet passes that site, it bursts and it drops off growth factors. So these little micro injuries are going on all over your body. Your gut especially is full of leaky gut inflammation. When you take BPC 157, which you can take orally, what it will do is it will bind to that site in the gut, and it will start calling platelets to that location, and it will accelerate wound repair. I also sit on the board of the NFL Alumni Association. I'm their health services director. So we see a lot of repetitive use injuries in athletes. And one of the most prolific ways to accelerate healing is them to take oral BPC 157. You can accelerate a tissue injury healing cycle by 14 weeks.
I did it after my knee injury. I
was
knee
gonna say,
surgery
after
last year.
surgery.
I had the most amazing recovery. People couldn't believe it, how fast I was back playing tennis,
Your red
wakeboarding,
light.
skiing. Couldn't believe it. It was, yeah.
We have time for one more question, so do raise your hand. Oh, hello. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
So I heard a lot about how important our moisture barrier is, our skin barrier, and really building that up with HA. Can you speak a little bit about exfoliation? And, you know, we talked about retinoids and retinol, but how do you... yeah.
So there are 3 forms of exfoliation. One is the mechanical exfoliation. You take a facial scrub and you gently, hopefully gently, there are also different sizes of your mechanics. So you can exfoliate like this and you get rid of dead skin cells, which is important because your skin wants to take on active ingredients, but also dead skin cells can oxidate with the sebum, and then you get blackheads and whiteheads, whatever, this we don't want. So it's a good thing for balancing skin exfoliation. So the second form is an enzyme cleanser that we have in our line as well. There are 2 enzymes, subtilisine and lipase, which gently take off dead skin cells. So it's a powder, and you have to activate this enzyme. So if you find an enzyme cleanser which is already liquid, doesn't do anything. You need to activate the enzymes, and they're not lasting all that much, all that long. So you activate it with water, mix it in your hands, wash your face 1 minute, take it off. You have the most gentle, most beautiful exfoliation of your dead skin cells. So the third form is an acid peel or retinol, and that not only takes off the dead skin cell, but it also takes off healthy skin cells. So any product which says resurfacing or retinoids, they take off your healthy skin cells, but also obviously then break through your skin barrier, your microbiome, and we just heard how important our microbiome is, and we actually carry 2 kilograms of microbiome with us, on us. So not just in the gut, but in every organ, every skin, everything has a microbiome. It needs a certain pH, it needs a certain treatment with our product. So we cannot use soap, for example, washing our face, because our soap is very alkaline and the pH of our skin is slightly acidic. And if we go alkaline, we destroy our microbiome, and then we have problems with our skin. So it really matters already which cleanser we use, because sometimes you say, oh, I buy the hyaluronic serum from Sturm, but then maybe I take a cheap cleanser. It's not the, our cleanser lasts you forever, by the way. You don't need much. And the enzyme cleanser actually is, it lasts you 2 years. I mean, like, it's not very business oriented, but you have these products, get valuable products with the knowledge behind it, what needs to be done, because lots of brands, they don't care about your pH. It's all about knowledge, and that's why I wanted Gary and Sage to be here, because I want to inform everyone so you can make informed, good choices for yourself, because this is like, you have to be your own expert. It's not, me, you can direct your life. It's you, but you need to get the knowledge. And it's a jungle out there. I mean, who do you want to trust? Who do you want to believe? So I choose the people you can believe and trust, but it's really hard for us to break through the jungle, through the noise. But I tell you one thing. Don't hurt your skin. Don't make your skin red. Don't make your skin be itchy and dry. Make your skin be the best it can be. Hydrate, take inflammation out, give nutrition, give exosomes, give telomerase activators. Do the right thing so you don't bring the future closer. You take what you got and make it the best version of what it could be.
Can I just say, this is like a very attractive audience. I mean, you guys are, like, everyone's
Everybody
skin
has
looks
good
great
skin.
in here.
It's 'cause
I
everybody's
should be
using
getting
Barbara's
advice
product.
from you.
We have one more questions, by the way.
This will be quick. I'm curious. I love that you brought up how nutrients have to be methylated for them to be effective. And there's a lot to be said about how to do things right in skincare and health in general. I'm curious to know if you have any if you can debunk any like buzzy marketing, like skincare stuff currently.
Oh, wow.
How long have you got? I think.
Really good question. I love it.
So yes, first of all, like the one that I will debunk that I think people use a lot is alkaline water. There is no such thing as changing the pH of your blood by drinking alkaline water. Alkaline water won't move the pH of your blood 1/10 of a point. That's the biggest marketing myth ever sold to the public. So, and by the way, you don't actually want to buffer your blood too much, right? The pH range of the blood is very narrow. What will reduce the pH of your blood and keep you in more of an alkaline state and less of an acidic state is hydrogen water. That is something that will actually work because it will cross that blood-brain barrier. So a big one is alkaline water. And the second one is that we should be deathly afraid of the sun. If I was to show you a chart of the parabolic rise in skin cancer, it would be superimposable with the parabolic use of sunscreen. Paraaminobenzoic acids, bisphenols, all these aerosols, a lot of actually what we were using to protect our skin because we've been taught to fear the sun has actually directly been linked to skin cancer. In fact, since 2018, 23 brands of sunscreen have been pulled from the market for directly causing skin cancer. Prolonged exposure to the sun is not good. Morning sunlight is excellent for you. During the first 45 minutes of the day, there are no UVA or UVB rays from the sun. So if you're concerned about sun damage, get first light. 20 minutes or 25 minutes of direct sun exposure on your skin will not only increase your vitamin D3 level, it will improve the circulation in your skin by exposing your skin to sunlight first thing in the morning. So I guess those are two of the big ones.
I'm so happy you say that because this is another big myth and we are so confused. And people tell me, I use sunscreen 24/7, 24/7. And it's correct when you use all these harsh ingredients to destroy your skin barrier. But don't demonize the sun. The sun is so important to us. Yeah, don't go to the beach like the English people and just, you
Like
know,
the
I know a
English people?
shine of sun. Shivi is like all day in the sun, she's burned and whatever. Don't do that. You know, that's not what we want to do. Stay out of the sun. Don't tan. Don't do all this. But we need the sun for so many things. Our immune system, our bones, vitamin D, respiratory tract, our mental health, and vasodilatation comes through the sun. We cannot, and that's something I want to say, we cannot separate the skin from our system, from our health. Do you now see how important and how the connection is between skin and our health? I think this is mind-blowing what we learned today, and we have to take this seriously and don't demonize the things that are good for us. We are not born as moles under the earth. We need daylight.
You know, I was a population mortality expert for years, and if you actually look at the longest life expectancies on Earth, they are actually centered right around the equator. In fact, for every 20 degrees latitude that you move away from the equator, there's a precipitous drop in life expectancy until you get to the poles, where you find the shortest life expectancy on Earth. A true Eskimo has the shortest life expectancy on Earth, and is largely because they are almost completely devoid of sunlight. And you know, vitamin D3, cholecalciferol, is arguably the most important single nutrient in the human body. Human beings, everybody in this room, if I was to draw your blood, you have hundreds of vitamins in your bloodstream. Your body is only capable of making one. Human beings make one vitamin. Vitamin D3. We make it from sunlight and cholesterol.
For health, right?
Yeah, it was the second leading cause of morbidity
There's a study they did. They asked like hundreds and hundreds of patients in the 70s how many hours they take sun during the day, how they're spent in the sun. They came out with the results and they say the more hours you spend in the sun, the longer you live. And one thing isn't, Gary already said that, something happens besides the production of vitamin D. The skin releases nitric oxide, which vasodilates the vessels, and you have less problems with your heart. And now, you know, less heart strokes, heart attacks, etc., etc. And this is so important because how many people live of heart attacks, and how many people die of heart attacks, and how many people die of skin cancer? And we have to really also pick our battles. And obviously, if you have like really fair skin and you burn quickly and you have like the history of having skin cancer in your family, we have to be so extra careful. It's not everybody is the same. We have to balance what we do to our body and to ourselves and make the choices based on our predisposition.
Yeah, excellent.
I feel like vitamin D could be a whole 1 hour talk.
Oh gosh,
in
yeah, I
itself.
could really go down
It's
that
so
bandwagon.
important, so influential, but unfortunately we do have to leave it there. There are so many cool things to do in this anti-inflammatory house. Get some red light, make yourself feel instantly good. I did that yesterday, it was fantastic. And there are lots of product experts on hand, lovely juices, snacks, and that kind of thing. And post about it on social media if you've had a lovely time today. Thank you so much, Sage, Gary, and of course, Dr. Barbara for hosting us.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you very much.